Hey guys, welcome to episode 12 of the Awesome Blossom Knits podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I thought this might be a good time for a little reintroduction since there's some new viewers and I didn't really do much of an introduction in my first episode anyway. So my name is Lauren. I'm an American currently living in Japan. My husband is in the military, so I live on a US military base here with him, our 7-year-old son, and my 10-year-old puppy dog. I've been in Japan about 9 months so far, and sometimes it's difficult being so far away from home, but I do love it here. I have made some good friends, and it's just a beautiful country, so I'm happy to be here. This is a knitting podcast, so a little bit about how I got started knitting, I guess. I learned to crochet as a child. I don't know how old I was, but probably before I started kindergarten. My mom crocheted and still does, so she taught me to crochet when I was little, and I did that throughout my childhood. I would make, scarves for my stuffed animals and other little projects like that. And then I kind of stopped crocheting for a while. When I was a teenager and into my early 20s, my main creative hobby was painting. I like to draw and paint a lot. But then when my son was born, it was kind of difficult because I didn't have large blocks of time to sit down and paint. And I couldn't just paint for 5 minutes and then put it down and come back to it. It just didn't work for me. So I started crocheting again when my son was born because it was a creative hobby that I could do in short bursts of time, 5 minutes here and there between changing diapers and feeding the baby and all that kind of stuff. So I got back into it. I crocheted a lot when he was a baby and a toddler, and crocheting eventually led me to knitting. It was something I wanted to do for a while, and I had kind of dabbled in it a little bit previously, but it never really stuck the first few times. I think I initially tried to teach myself knitting with books. I bought some how to knit kind of instruction books, but just looking at pictures and books, I didn't really get it, I guess. So when I decided I wanted to learn again about 3 years ago, I got on YouTube and I watched all kinds of knitting tutorials on YouTube, and that's how I taught myself to knit. So yeah, I started knitting consistently about 3 years ago, and then earlier this year I decided to start this podcast to share my obsession with all of you guys. So with that said, I have quite a lot to share with you guys today, so let's go ahead and start with finished projects. The first finished project is these blueberry waffle socks, which you did see before, but it's been several episodes back, I think. I knit these over the summer. I knit most of the socks over the summer. These are for my son. If you can hear that pitter-pattering, it's my dog. I don't usually record with him in the room, but he was sitting outside the door whining, so I let him in, and he's down here making weird noises. But anyways, I knit most of these over the summer. They're for my son. And I knit all the way up to the toes, and then I put them on hold because I wanted to wait until it was actually going to be weather that he'd be able to wear them to finish them, because I knew his feet were going to grow, which they did. So I picked them back up last week, I guess, and I tried them on him, and I had to knit another centimeter or so before starting the toe decreases. So these were knit, I think 56 stitches. I think a size 1 needle. Pattern is Blueberry Waffle Socks by Sandy Turner. And the yarn is Picks Stroll in blue and dove heather for the contrast color. Did a fish lips kiss heel and I think I'm going to give him these for Christmas, put them in his Christmas stocking maybe. He's seen them, obviously I tried them on him the other day, but he doesn't know they're finished, so kind of a surprise though, I don't know. Yeah, so that is finished project number 1. The next one I have is this headband ear warmer thing that I made for myself to keep my ears warm when I don't want to wear a hat. And it is, the pattern is called Cable Braids Headband by Hannah Payman. The original is written for fingering weight yarn, and there are 3 of these cable braids next to each other. I used a worsted weight yarn, so I just did 2. And the yarn is called Wister Color Melange, color number 16. I did end up buying 2 balls of this. It comes in 30-gram balls, and one was not quite enough to finish the project, so I did have to go buy a second one. But it's a really nice heathered purplish blue, I guess. I've noticed watching back the podcast when I go to edit it that my camera does not do a very good job of picking up subtle color variations like heathered yarns or, you know, subtle speckles and stuff like that, but it is heathered and it's really beautiful. So the only thing I would do differently if I make another one of these at some point is I would start with a provisional cast on and then graft the ends together when I get to the end. There is a little bit of a seam here. I tried to sew it together, you know, as seamlessly as possible, but I think you can still kind of see. I think a provisional cast on and a Kitchener stitch would have been a better finish, but that'll be in the back anyway, so that's okay. I really like it. I think it's gonna be nice and warm on my ears, and let me try and put it on for you. See if I can not mess up my hair too badly. There we go. So it works for days like today when I have a big bun on my head and I don't want to smash it under a hat, right? So, Cable Braids Headband by Hannah Payman. Next finished project is a gift knit. I don't know if the person I made these for watches the podcast. I don't think so, but just in case, I'm not going to say anything or say who they're for. They are a pair of fingerless mitts. So I used the pattern Waiting for Winter Mittens and Fingerless Mitts by Susan B. Anderson. And I used Knit Picks Swish Worsted in the Lava Heather colorway, which is a really interesting color. It's, from a distance, it kind of looks brown, like almost a purplish brown, but there's flecks of red, purple, gold. It's a really interesting color. The original pattern does not have these cables. It is just a stockinette mitten pattern. I added the cables. They're just really simple, I guess 2-stitch cables. You have 1 stitch crossing over 1 stitch. And I did draw a chart for this, just for my own use when I was making them, but I took a picture of the chart and I added it to the photos on the project page for these mitts. So if you're interested or you want to make a pair like it, that chart is there and you could use it if you want. Let's see. Oh, the only thing I would change if I make another pair like this, which I might because I really like the way these cables came out, I would add another column of the cables over here and another column of purl stitches on the side, because I knit them magic loop, so I had the back of the hand stitches on needle 1 and the palm stitches on needle 2, and then I did the increases for the thumb gusset, half of them on the first needle and the other half on needle 2, so the thumb gusset came out right in the middle there. And I centered my cable chart that I drew up on the front stitches. I centered the cable chart on my needle 1 stitches. So it looks centered on my needles, but then when I, try these mitts on, the way your thumb is, your thumb kind of comes out more from the front of your hand, really. So it kind of pulls the mitt over this way, and then it doesn't look as centered when you're actually wearing the mitts, if that makes sense. So it's not a big deal, just something I would do differently if I were to make another pair of these. The Swish yarn is super soft, and it is a superwash merino yarn, so that's good for gift knit for someone who maybe, who's not a knitter and maybe doesn't want to hand wash things, but I'm not like overly impressed with the Swish yarn. It's kind of, it feels like it's gonna pill really badly. Like it's gonna pill really quickly. So I don't know how well these are gonna hold up over time is what I'm saying, but they're really soft. The stitch definition is not great either. It could be better, but it's okay. I had this yarn from a couple of years ago. I knit my husband a sweater, and I was looking at the yarns online, and I bought several like individual skeins. These come in 50-gram skeins, just to see the color in person before I decided what color to knit it in. So this was one of the sample balls that I bought to knit that sweater. I ended up not knitting it in Swish. I knit it in the Wool of the Andes yarn, which I think was a good choice. But I have several balls of Swish still that I will eventually use for small projects like this that were just color samples. So like I said, 50-gram skein of that, and this is all I have left. This is like 3 or 4 grams. So I had just enough to make these mitts, and really if I were making them for myself, I would probably want more than 50 grams of yarn, because I like my fingerless gloves to come up a little higher. But I was weighing the yarn as I knit the first one to make sure that I didn't use more than half of the skein, and this was as long as I could knit it and know that I had enough yarn left for the second one. Also, the person I made them for, she is smaller than me, and I'm pretty certain she has shorter hands. I have pretty long fingers, I don't know if you can tell, but so I think these will be a good fit for her. So yeah, that's my cabled mitts. Oh, and I knit the medium size in the pattern. I knit the medium size, but I went down a needle size. I use a size 6 needle for these. The last finished project I have is this adorable baby bonnet. So I knit this for one of my husband's coworkers. He's having a baby soon. So the pattern is the Asher bonnet, and it's this really beautiful lace pattern. Here's the back of the bonnet. And it has I-cord all around the front edge, little I-cord ties. I really enjoyed this knit. The pattern is really easy, and there's just enough going on with this lace detail that it's interesting. So it knit up very fast. The yarn is Knit Picks Stroll in the Dogwood Heather color. And I knit the 0 to 3 month size. However, I am pretty sure that this came out bigger than 0 to 3 months. So the pattern calls for size 3 needles, and I used size 1.5, and my gauge was still bigger than what it was supposed to be. I probably would have gotten gauge on a size 1 needle, actually, but I went ahead and just kept knitting on the 1.5 because I figured it's fine. If it comes out a little bigger, it'll fit the baby at some point. Yeah, what else? Oh, this only used 16 grams of yarn, so little yarn. I can definitely, you could definitely make this with like, if you have a 20-gram mini skein or leftovers from a pair of socks. This only took 16 grams of yarn, and this wasn't even the smallest size. There's one size smaller than this in the pattern, I believe. There's a newborn and then a 0 to 3 month size. So yes, highly recommend this pattern. I'm definitely gonna knit it again the next time I need to make a sweet little baby gift. And that is the Asher bonnet. I don't know if I said, by Amanda Morst. Love it. So moving on to works in progress. The first one I have is, I don't recall if I had already started this the last time I recorded or not, but it's another kid sock. Knitting these on size 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles. The yarn is Super Garn Active. Color number 5920, and it's a self-patterning yarn, like so. That's Mr. Snoopy back there. Snoopy! Yeah, so kid sock, 56 stitches, and I'm doing a 2x2 rib on the whole sock this time. So, really, he just farted. Yeah, so 2x2 ribbing. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do a short row heel in a contrast color or if I'm going to do an afterthought heel. I've knit with this yarn once before. I made some socks for myself. Not this colorway, but it was a similar pattern, but all in shades of blue. And it worked. I did an afterthought heel and it worked really nicely with the self-patterning. So I might do that. We'll see. I was maybe gonna finish these for Christmas as well as the blueberry waffle socks, but I don't know if I'm gonna get to it. So that is work in progress number 1. The next one is the Sockhead Cowl. The pattern is by Kelly McClure. You've probably all heard of the Sockhead hat, possibly even knit it yourself. I know that's a really popular pattern. This is the cowl that she made to go with that pattern, I guess. So there's a bunch of ribbing, and then there's a really long stockinette section, and then there will be another section of ribbing at the other end of the cowl. And I really was kind of drawn to this pattern because I thought the ribbing would be nice to like keep the cowl up against my neck so it's not gaping too much. Like it'll keep it snug up here to keep the cold air out. And you can kind of fold the ribbing in too, I think, when you wear it. So yeah, I'm excited to have this. I think it's going to be a nice cowl for the winter. I am using Malabrigo sock yarn in the Persia colorway. Find the tag here. Yeah, Malabrigo sock. I believe superwash merino wool. So I believe there's no nylon. I think it's just merino. Persia color. And it's a really nice tonal, kind of deep, like dark sapphire blue, kind of, with dark grays in there. Really pretty. Also, I hand wound this center pull ball. So I don't have a ball winder, which doesn't really bother me. I usually just, roll balls like this. But I wanted to try hand winding a center pull ball. And I used this toilet paper tube method. If I can remember, I'll post a link in the description box to the YouTube tutorial that I watched to do this. But basically you just winds the yarn around a toilet paper tube and it makes a center pull ball. And I like it. The ball doesn't go like rolling away on me while I'm trying to knit with it. So that's a new thing for me. What else can I say about this? I'm using a US 2.5 or 3 millimeter needles, which I think is what the pattern called for, but my gauge was a little bit looser. So I did cast on a little bit fewer stitches than what the pattern calls for because of the gauge difference. But yeah, so really nice tonal color. This is great TV knitting. Just knitting stockinette all the way around. So my last work in progress, saved my favorite one for last, is another pair of Christmas socks for myself. And I did another center pull ball for this too. So the yarn I'm using is Legacy Fiber Arts in the A Christmas Story colorway on their Cozy Toes base, which is merino, cashmere, and nylon. I have never knit with cashmere before, and really the only reason I bought this on a cashmere base is because I think they were sold out of this color on the other bases. So I bought it last year around Christmas time, and I've been saving it to knit at Christmas this year. And so I have cast on a sock. What's going on here? Sorry. So I'm not using a specific sock pattern for this. I got the stitch pattern out of a stitch dictionary that I have. I think it was called like uneven rib or offset rib or something like that. But it's super springy and stretchy and squishy. It's basically 2x2 ribbing. So you do one row, knit 2, purl 2 around, and then the next row I start with a knit 1, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2 around. So it's knit 2, purl 2 ribbing, but every other row is scooched over 1 stitch, if that makes sense. So it's not the fastest thing to knit because it's ribbing all the way down. There's no plain knit rows, but I really like the effect. And I really like the way this yarn looks. It's this beautiful, like, white and icy blue with speckles of red and a little bit of green. I like this one dark green speckle right here. I want to say there's a little bit of yellow. But yeah, so that's my Christmas Story socks. One last thing about these socks, I am knitting my socks on size 0 needles for the first time, 2mm. These are the Chalgu lace needles. And I really like it. It's hard to compare it to other socks, like gauge-wise, right now, because I am knitting this crazy ribbing, so it's not really comparing apples to apples if I measure the ribbing gauge versus stockinette gauge on another pair of socks, but I have tried them on my leg and I like the way they fit. And when I get to the bottom part of the sock, the sole will be in stockinette, so I can get a better idea of the gauge I'm getting on these needles from that. But so far, I'm really liking the size 0 needles, and I think I need to buy a couple more pairs of them so I can cast on more socks. So that is all of my knitting to share this week. So one more thing I wanted to share with you guys today is this amazing package I picked up from the post office this morning from Liesbeth of the Knitting Teaspoon podcast. So a couple weeks ago, I guess, I won a giveaway and a knit along that she had hosted on her channel, and she sent me the most amazing box of goodies, and I can't wait to show you. So I'm going to show you the project bags first. She made these. So this is the first one. It's like a knot style bag. Do you like that? I love it. I've never used one like this, so I'm excited to try that out. All of the project bags I currently have are ones I made myself, so it's kind of fun to have some that are made by someone else now. Here's her little label she put in there, made by the Knitting Teaspoon. And this is the second one. It's a drawstring bag. Also has her adorable label there. I have to say, the whole package is totally my color palette. All these blues and greens and purples. It's perfect. And I have these little, she put these little, what do you call them? Stitch markers here too. They are from, she told me in her note the name of the store. It's S7ORE, I think. I'm not sure if you're just meant to pronounce that. No, S7ORS. So stores maybe? It's not focusing. I'm not sure, but it's a Dutch Etsy store. Liesbeth is from the Netherlands, so. Let's see. That was a spinning wheel, and then there's a little ball of yarn. And this little Buddha guy. So those are super fun. And inside each of the bags, there's these little lavender pouches, lavender sachets. And the cutest fabric with these little, whoops, little Dutch people. And then they have the wooden shoes on the back. I love it. And then inside those beautiful project bags, she managed to pack a ton of yarn, and it's all sock yarn, which is awesome because socks are my favorite thing to knit. So let me show you. First is this Lang Yowl. I'm not sure if that's the colorway 832 or not, but it's really pretty, light, kind of muted blue color. I think this will be awesome for some patterned socks. This light, solid color will really show off, you know, a fancy pattern well. And then there is 2 skeins of self-patterning yarn. So this one is Lana Grossa, and Fantasy, maybe the colorway, I'm not sure, but it's these awesome blue stripes, self-patterning stripes. And this one is Regia Arnie and Carlos, color 03653. Beautiful purple, blue, teal. I think that's what the pattern will knit up like. And then there's this rainbow skein from Opal. Let's see. Maybe, I'm not sure if the colorway, no, I think Surprise is the name of the line. Maybe one of these is the colorway. I'm not sure. But it's this really cool, like, rainbow, would you call that a gradient? Self-striping? I don't know, but these are gonna make some super fun, happy socks. And then the next skein is from Wilmette Verve, maybe? I am sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of this. And is After 8 Candy maybe the colorway? I'm not sure. But it's a 75% superwash virgin wool, 25% nylon blend in this really beautiful aqua blue, light turquoise color with speckles of purple and blue and gold. Again, this is totally my colors right here. And I saved my favorite for last, which is this skein that Liesbeth dyed herself. Ah, it's a really pretty mint green. And this is a merino nylon sock yarn. And there's a few little speckled areas. And it's just the most beautiful, like, tonal mint color. I can't wait to knit with it. So thank you so much, Liesbeth. I absolutely love everything. That was a really generous prize package you sent me. And it just made my week to open it today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And that brings us to the end of the podcast. So thank you so much for watching. And in the description box below, you can find some brief show notes as well as links to my Instagram, Etsy, Ravelry, all that stuff. I do keep project pages for all of my projects on Ravelry, so if I forgot to mention a colorway name or needle size or something like that, you can check there and get more information. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!